Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Welcome back, friends. Today we're sitting in Los Angeles with a guest that I was connected to 2 days ago that somehow came through this fast. It must be because she's from the Midwest and she knows, hey, Chris is from Wisconsin. I have to meet this gentleman. Our guest today does stunt double work. She's a swimsuit model. She's gone through like a pretty ridiculous lifestyle at only 30 years old. So I'm excited to hear this whole story. Welcome to the show, Margo Graff.
Hello.
Thank you so much for making this happen last second.
Oh, yeah, you betcha. It's because I'm from Minnesota, you know. I'm a good old Midwestern girl in LA, huh?
Not the
flakiness LA motherfuckers.
You know,
Are you allowed to swear on here?
Well, yeah.
Okay, I just did. So.
Yeah. No, so the first few times I came out here, I ran into that a lot. So I would overbook myself. That's what I taught myself is overbook yourself because 1 out of 3 people every day are going to flake because some better opportunity came up or whatever, because people are like that. This is the first trip nobody flaked on me. Instead, everybody, such as Laura Abraham, who connected me to you, was like, oh my God, this was great. Can I connect you to my friend? And I'm like, yeah, but like, I'm busy. Like, how can I say no? So I ended up doing way more interviews on this trip than ever. I even have another one tomorrow, like just before my flight. So anyway, so tell me about how you know Laura Abraham. Just because I just interviewed her, I got to know the connection.
Yes.
Is it through movie stuff or what?
So I'm an action actress. I train stunts, firearms, martial arts, and then I'm a world finalist for Miss Swimsuit USA and entrepreneur. I create a whole bunch of businesses. How I met Lauren is one of my side gigs that I do in LA is I do nightlife, right? So I do a lot of bottle service because the outfits are very small, sexy, and super fun. You basically get paid to party, even though I don't like to drink just because my body's so sensitive, and I also hate waking up with a hangover. I also am very healthy and would rather eat my calories than have a bunch of empty calories. So I met Lauren at this club that actually shut down. It was called Tribal, and it was like this Tulum themed nightclub. They did like whole tribal body painting, fire breathers. Like it was like insane, so cool, such a vibe. And so I served her one night, and we just kind of had this like spiritual click. And then we had like talked a few times on social media, but I actually reconnected with her at Guy Gerber's concert. I like spotted her out of the crowd and was like, I grabbed her hand and like brought her past security, like up to Guy Gerber. And she had been messaging him because she's known him for years and had been trying to get a hold of him, but obviously he was like playing a fucking set. So he like, I brought her to him, and Guy turned around and was like, Lauren! And I was like, yes, okay, great connection made. Now I have to go back to work. So I just did my little snake sizzle, and then we just really we met up, had some girl time, and we have such similar stories. And we were like, oh, wow. We've known each other in like so many past lives, or we've just have this like connection where we're like, I love you. You're like my soul sister.
Yeah.
So she's like my older sister. I love her so much. She's so fabulous.
Have you met Chastity Ashley before?
I haven't.
Okay, well, she's the coolest. Besides, both of you are also the coolest. But anyway, she's the one who connected me to Laura or Lauren, and her saying that she lived by that when I interviewed her was, your vibe is your tribe.
Yes.
And seriously, like when you meet somebody else that's like of the same vibes, especially out here. And I don't want to like shit talk people in LA because like it's hard to live out here. There's like a lot going on, and in order to pay your bills, you have to hustle. So I get why people always like have their eyes on the prize. But when you meet people, that money doesn't seem to be like the motivating factor.
Yeah.
Like it obviously comes with the territory, you have to, but that doesn't seem to be what they're after.
Yeah.
It's a totally different relationship, you know? And then you want to build off that once you meet somebody from there. And that's why this interview happened. Because Lauren was like, you got to meet Margo. And I'm like, well, if you told me that, then yes.
I look up to her, and so like she's been on the cover of literally 2030 magazine. She has a killer body. She's like one of the top paid like fitness celebrity trainers, like incredible athlete, like interviewer on ESP. Like she's insane, right? Yes, insane. So truly, like, as we were talking about this earlier, like I love that I'm 30. I feel like when I stepped into 30, I really stepped into a power that I had not tapped into of just knowing really who I am. I've been through a lot, and just being so grounded and this is what I want, this is who I am, this is what I don't like, and being okay with the power of no.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is not for me.
Right.
Or like, I'm not going to pretend to do something or like somebody, like, it's just a no.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was telling you I'll probably be 30 for the next 20 years.
Sure,
So
sure.
be ready for the next 20 years. We always saying I'm 30, but 30 is such a powerful age. But LA is really tricky because you move out here for your dreams, right? So I moved from Minnesota to school in Indiana, and then I was in Europe, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Europe for a while, studying abroad. I lived in Chicago, lived in New York for grad school for acting, and then I moved to LA. But yeah, it's really tough because even like I have this core group of like 5 girlfriends that I love. I really love. We're there for each other so much. And I actually learned this from one of my exes. And I think I've taken it a little too far in the last year and a half, but he was like, you'll always have to take care of yourself first. And I get also that kind of translated in, he was never there for me in our relationship ever.
Sure.
But it taught me that I do have to make myself a priority.
Yeah.
And so in the last year and a half, I really, I can have my best friends in the entire world, but sometimes I won't see them for like a month or 2 months, and we'll just talk on the phone. We'll FaceTime, because I really, if I'm going to see you, we're doing something athletic, we're hiking, we're working out, I'm training with you, stunts, acting, I'm working with you on a job or like at a festival. I do a lot of festivals. So it's like right now, I want to be my best self. I want to be in a really incredible, stable place with my businesses, my acting, like financially and investing in like a year and a half. And so like for the last year and a half, I've been kind of like curled up and being like, if it's unnecessary money that I don't need to spend, if I don't need to go out, I don't need to do it. If you want to come and cook, or I'll come cook with you and let's save money, just be together. But like, I don't need to spend money on random shit. So like, I love cooking with Lauren. Lauren has this incredible bungalow and in Santa Monica, and like a fireplace, a sauna, like cold shower, and just like, she actually lives in this nest of a bunch of artists. So one thing we're actually putting together is like a female pop-up shop.
Oh, cool.
So her and I have like a bunch of stuff that we want to sell. And I was like, how can we bring in other female business entrepreneurs? I have a friend, Sierra Nowak, incredible actress, been on Lucifer, and she's actually a past winner of Miss Swimsuit USA. She's hosting my pageant this year.
So she's your mentor a bit.
Insane. I'm like, how lucky am I that I get to have my best friend host the pageant in October. But she has this candle business, which is like all soy, vegan, small business, candle business. So I'm like, I have all these other friends where I'm like, if we just bring this collective of women entrepreneurs and try and help support each other, and then put a little bit of the proceeds towards like Planned Parenthood or something like that, like that's kind of where I spend my time, I feel like. And I try and be a lot more purposeful with that. Sometimes it can neglect a lot of my friendships, but I'm in this space of reaching back out to them and apologizing that, you know what, I haven't always been there for you. I've been there for me. And I've also needed to.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm trying to set myself up.
There's that saying, though, is like, you can't take care of other people if you can't take care of yourself. If you're not in a position to be able to give help to others because you aren't in a good position yourself, then like there's really no point. So you have to cover that base first. It's not necessarily like looking out for number one in the way that people imagine it in that kind of way. It's just like, you can't be in a position where you need help from everybody else because you're just downtrodden. And the thing is people who have the least to give tend to give the most. You know what I mean? So you have to flip that mindset and be like, okay, I just have to make sure I'm taken care of. Yeah. And then I'll be able to do way more. I'll be able to have a way bigger impact. And I think it also comes with the maturity too, as far as like not knowing where you actually want to be. Because when you're younger, you have this idea of the grass is going to be greener everywhere else, you know, and you're not ready to kind of settle into the path of what you want because you don't know what you want yet, because you have all these other things that are like, well, maybe I would really want that. Maybe I would really want that. And it's super distracting. Once you've lived in Europe, you've lived in Chicago, you've moved around and you've experienced all these things, it helps you understand like, okay, well, now I know what I actually want because I've experienced those things. You know what I mean? It just happens with life. Like I went through, I was married for a long time. I have 2 kids. I got divorced. Now I have my kids every other week. I'm on my second house now. And like I used to work for corporate businesses. Now I own a skateboard shop. Now I'm on the Parks Commission with my city and I'm doing this. And it's just as time has gone by, I've gotten to sample all these things.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it kind of helped me fine tune like where I want to spend my time. So getting back though earlier, because I don't know any of your story before, like when you were in Minnesota and stuff. I know that you were, you had some not great relationships and stuff and dealt with that. But you didn't get into this career path until way later. So what did you even want to do when you were younger?
Later. I actually, it's so funny. I think my parents always knew I was going to be an actor. My parents got divorced when I was very early, like 3, and I've known my stepmom since I've been 3, and so I have 4 parents. I've known 4 parents my whole life. I'm an only child by birth. I have lots of step people, 3 on each side, but like we don't really interact like siblings, even though I've known them my whole life. But I mean, my parents, I think, always knew I was going to be an actor. My mom, when she was dating, she'd have a boyfriend at the house before dinner or something, and I would like dress up in like, I would curl my hair, I would wear this rhinestone BB halter or turtleneck snakeskin pants, and I would put on Ricky Martin or Enrique Iglesias, and I would dance on the table and make them sit down and watch me dance on the table and look at myself in like the bay windows. So my mom, I think they always knew I was going to be a performer. I got in acting classes when I was younger, and something happened. I honestly don't know what. And I came back from class and I was just hysterically crying one day, and I was like, I'll never go back. And so all 4 of my parents are entrepreneurs, very successful in their own right. And so I was just always like, I'm going to have my own business. Even though I was always also such an artist, I would like draw and like, I used to color on my Barbies, give them tattoos, cut their hair, like draw clothes. My mom was like, okay, no Barbies. Stop torturing your Barbies.
Creative energy.
Yes. I just didn't know how to channel it.
Right.
And, I got bullied very, very early on in school.
Why was that? Because you were so loud of a personality?
Back in the 90s, this is so bad, and I'm so glad they've changed it. Like porn channels were right next to kids channels, right?
Yeah.
So like my cousin was babysitting me one day, and I stumbled upon a like softcore porn Skinamax.
Sure.
And I was like, whoa, what is this? And I was sexualized early on at such an early age where I told my cousin this. She would try and change the channel. I'd be like, if you change the channel, I will say you made me watch this. Like I was
Sure.
Scorpio, crazy child. And so I was sexualized very early on at a young age. And I also just would watch these Skinamax movies where, you're not actually seeing any of the crazy stuff, but it's like, these people meet and it's just like this sexy
it's like
scene.
softcore porn.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is love.
Sure.
I'm like, oh, this is how relationships are. This is how you show men that you love them. This is how you get people to love you.
Yeah.
Is like you play out Skinamax storylines, right? And that's how you get people to love you. And so, it's I lost my virginity at, I want to say like maybe 13, 12 or something. And, because I was an only child, and my dad's an art dealer. He sells art for like rock stars, right? Like Ronnie Wood, Mick Jagger, they're all painters. He sells their art. Mick of Fleetwood Mac, he sells their art. So my dad has been like...
Did he live in somewhere else before? Because how do you meet them if you live in Minnesota?
So he does business and works with galleries in like Hawaii and Art Basel and Florida or whatever, but he's from Minnesota.
Oh, okay.
So he would always go back home, but he would spend like, 4 months out of the year in different places
so he had networked
working.
for a long time doing that.
Yeah,
okay,
and
sure.
you can work from your computer doing anything like that.
Yeah.
And so I grew up also with, my dad kind of being like this rock star, going to the AMAs, Grammys, because he would promote their art in these brochures.
Sure.
So I was always around older people, and I would go up and dress up to these award shows. So I just, as a young girl, was always also into like older guys, not like older, like I was in 8th grade and he was like a senior in high school. Like
Sure.
Still not crazy bad. Like he's not in his 20s or 30s, but like, so the girls in schools just didn't like me.
Sure.
and I get it. They were threatened by me. It was a lot of the girls that were in their same grade that were being like, stop messing with our guys. So they would like call me, leaving me voicemails 4 times a day telling me to kill myself. Yeah. They would like push me down the hallways, write horrible things in the bathroom, you know, and they would have to lock the bathroom to clean the bathroom. But so I shut down a lot of the vulnerable parts in me. And I was like, I stopped singing. I stopped doing like performances and solos because I would just be so bullied. So I shut down the real artist in me for a very long time. And I changed high schools, and I went to a private school, and I was like, great, business. I'm super business minded. I'm super creative. I'm super entrepreneurial. I'm such a self-starter. Business. So I went to business school, and in business school, I actually won every business competition of the year of my, sophomore year business competition, junior year business competition. I was winning like thousands of dollars for best operating practice, best innovative business idea, all these things. And, ended up going to Europe and having, which we'll also get into, I'm just kind of saying how I got into acting, but, actually,
why'd you go to Europe then? If you were winning all these business things, why didn't you just try to find start a business or find a mentorship or somewhere? You know what I mean? Why didn't you go right into that?
Business school, a lot of people in my sorority everyone studies abroad. And I was like, yeah, why wouldn't I study abroad? Right. So there was a bunch of girls in my sorority going to Spain. So, we were all, and I was also getting out of a abusive relationship where I was like, I have to leave. I have to get out of here because it was bad. Like, and I think also, you know, when you're dating someone who's probably the life of the party and everyone loves him, he's super funny, charismatic. When you break up and people still want to be invited to the parties, people still want to be like in the cool clique, they will pressure the girl to, you know, stop making a big deal out of it. So he used to be like, in my sorority, he was head houseboy, used to make all of our meals. So in my sorority, every single meal, he'd be in the cafeteria. Even when I would walk out of my room in my sorority after sleeping, he'd be like changing a light bulb in the hallway or cleaning the drains, or he lived behind my sorority. He would see when I came and left it with my car, like, and you
must have felt really threatened all the time.
For sure. Their cops definitely came and stopped several fights. And I never also like turned him in for being abusive because I was like, I love you. I'm a ride or die. I'm a Scorpio. I will like sabotage my whole life because
abusers a lot of times will go over the top to show you they love you after they've just done something horrible, and it messes with you.
Yes. And so I tried to get him fired from this job at my sorority, and all the girls were like, I can't believe you would try and take away his job. Like, how dare you? And I looked like I was the problem person because I was like, I don't have a single safe space where I don't have a place where I can go and heal my mental, heal my emotional. Like, he's at where I live. Yeah. He's behind my sorority house. Like, I can't go to any parties. My friends are lying, saying they're hanging out with their boyfriend, but they're going to his party. Like, I felt like I was going to kill myself or he was going to kill me. And so I needed to leave. I actually cheated on a test. And the dean of the school was like, I don't know why you think we would let you go study abroad. You have like 4 domestic violence things on your record, because he would always say I did it. Sure. And I would say he never did anything. And so they were like, we have to expel you. And I was like, I'm winning every single competition in the business school. Like, no one had won every single year. I was and they were like, but your personal like record is so horrible. And I was like, if you don't let me go study abroad, I had to say everything which really happened in all the situations and how he would hit me, punch me, it was crazy, all these things. And then I was like, but you have to let me go study abroad, because if you just let me stay here, it's not going to be good. So I need to go away.
Right.
I need to get away.
You need a different start.
Yes. So when I was studying abroad in Europe, I was just numbing the pain away. I was partying. I was doing everything to, just try and heal myself. But I was really numbing myself, because you're in college, right? So you're like, I'll just go party all over Europe. I'll do whatever. And when you're looking for the party will always find you.
Yeah.
Party will always find you. And especially if you're, a privileged white girl who's also had a very privileged life, you weren't given any, self-defense class. You weren't told to be aware that you're actually a target. You weren't told that, hey, when you're always looking for the party and you're always going with the party and you're into, the nice things in life, people will actually use that to bait you.
Well, and your guard was down because you went to the other side of the world to feel safe. So all of a sudden you think you're in a safe space.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So that's where I actually met these guys who I was in Brussels, Belgium, and they were like, hey, we're a band. Do you want to go on tour with us? And I was like, real life Penny Lane from Almost Famous? Yeah, I want to be a Band-Aid. My cousins are like, we're close to being fucking, excuse me, sorry, I hate swearing, but I do it a lot. We're close to being billionaires, had private jets. I was like, my dad works with rock stars. I was like, this is my life. This is what I'm meant to do. Take me away from this hellhole that is my life. Put me on a private jet and let's start the movie that is my life. And God was like, oh yeah, this is going to be a movie for sure. But they ended up being, so they would speak to me in a French-American accent. So they were speaking American in a French accent. And then I guess, so they were like, hey, ask me all these questions. Do you have a passport, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, and they were going to take me on tour with them on their jet. And I was like, yeah, my dad would totally understand if I just left for a little bit, went on tour, and I would come back. Like, life of a rock star is, I'm down. I guess they had roofied me. And by the time I blacked back in, I was like, something is very wrong. I do not feel safe. I have to get out of here. I don't know what's going on. There's cops. I have to leave. So I grabbed my friend and I was like, we have to go now.
And you guys were where at this
time?
In
Brussels, Belgium.
But I mean, like at a festival, at a bar?
No, we were at a bar, a brewery, Pink Elephant or something like. It was like a pink elephant, I think is their logo.
Was there a lot of people there?
Delirium. Yes and no. I don't really remember. It was a little foggy.
Sure.
So we just snuck out and we left. And when we're leaving, I was like telling her, I was like, hey, there's a guy following us. He's like a block and a half down. And then we kind of keep walking, and these two beautiful men start kind of approaching us from the front, and we're like, oh, smiling and trying to like go around them from the other side. And they basically, my friend looks behind us, and now the guy who's following us is like on our back. And these two other guys are now stop in front of us, grab my jacket, and start ripping us down to the ground, rip me down, throw me down on the ground, and start jumping up and down on my legs to try and break in my legs.
It happened that quick.
It happened that quick. Breaking up and like trying to break in my legs so I can't run, just trying to beat us up. Like, they weren't mugging us because my purse was in my hand. No one was grabbing my purse. They were trying to take us, to have a van pull up and take us because they had already roofied us. And I knew we had also been, my friend had been roofied the night before. Her drink had been roofied, and I had been mugged that night because I was standing there texting on my phone to my dad, and someone came up, grabbed my phone because it's Europe, pushed me down, and just ran away with my phone. And I got up and tried to start running after them, and I fell and toppled over myself. So
this was the day before?
This was the day before. Brussels, Belgium is a port. LA is also a port. New York is a port. Like, there's a lot of different ports where girls can easily kind of be taken in and out. But so at this point I was like, I just knew I couldn't fight them off. I was drunk, I was roofied, I had been mugged the night before. I was like, I can't fight them off. I have to run. I just heard God say so clearly for the first time in my life, run. Like, run. And I was just like, I have to go. They have to take her. They can't take me. They have to take her. They cannot take me. And I went from my back on, and I tried to roll over onto my stomach and put my knees underneath me. And I was just like, on the count of 3, I just got up and started, as they're like kicking me into the side. This one guy's on me, and these other 2 guys are on my friend. And I just was like, all of a sudden I just got up, I like jolted up and just started running. And now I'm just sprinting down the street, and it's like cobblestone street. I'm in 6-inch heels, like this leather corset bustier, and I'm just toppling over myself, but I'm just running for my life. And I'm just yelling to her, my friend, because this is the only thing I can do to help her. I was just yelling like, run, 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 because that's the only thing I could do to save her.
Right.
And she heard that, and the guys beating her up heard me yelling, clearly getting away, or something's going wrong. And both guys stopped beating her, look up at me, realize I'm getting away. And that gives her, because she wasn't roofied, she wasn't drunk like that. That gives her the actual seconds to say, they're stop beating me up. And just start running.
Yeah.
And now they're like, oh crap. Now we're letting our girl get away. So now these people are like chasing us. And it's like the New York long blocks and a half. And it's, there's nobody on the street, desolate street, but it's like a big shopping street.
Because it's the middle of the night.
Yes, middle of the night. And there's an alleyway. And so we run down the alleyway and it cuts to a main street. And we just turn the corner and fall on the ground in this convenience store and are just hysterical, like trying to get out what's happening, can't get out what's happening. And it's they both look outside. It's like a father and son family, Indian-owned convenience store. And they go outside and they see, and there's like no one there. And we're just hysterical. I can't move at this point. Like,
well, the adrenaline must have, that's what carried you. Your body's not capable
Yes.
of running all that far. But the
Yes.
adrenaline, because of everything that's happening,
Yes.
carries you. You get to a point where all of a sudden you're like, I'm sure you don't feel safe, but
Yeah.
like it's a momentary release.
Yes.
You
And
just
now,
collapse.
yes. And my legs are so messed up, and I'm just like, so the son of the convenience store carries me bride style back to our hostel. And I'm like, we walk, and he's carrying me bride style, and I'm holding my friend's hand, and
How come they didn't call the authorities right away?
I don't know. We just needed to go home.
I'm sure
I
that
don't
you
think
wanted
we
to get to
wanted
safety as soon as
It
possible.
was so messed. Like, we also left the next day. Like,
Sure.
it was too much trauma to process.
Yeah.
It was way too much trauma to process, where, I mean, we fell asleep holding each other's hands clenched, facing each other. And we woke up and her and I were still holding each other's hands like this, had not loosened grip at all once.
Well, because she's all of a sudden your only safety space.
Yes. And so, and we went to the bar with, so 3 of us total. And so the other girl came back, who she ended up staying with one of the guys there, and came back, and we were like, and she brought the guys she slept with that night back to our hostel. And we were like, how dare you bring some random man back to our hostel? Like, are you serious? I can't. And she didn't believe us for years. She didn't understand why we were so upset with her. And it was just, and then we left.
Sure.
Our flight was early that next morning. We left. It wasn't for also a couple years, 2 years later, when I was 2 or maybe 3 years later, I was living in New York, and I saw this girl, Nina, who I had known from Europe, but in my phone, it was Nina Spain. So I was like, oh, I met her in Spain. I knew she looked kind of French. She spoke French. I thought I maybe met her in France. I honestly wasn't sure. So when I saw her in New York, I was like, girl, let's meet up for pizza. I was like, girl, how long are you in the States? Like, thinking she's like European. She's like, I'm American. And I'm like, no, you're not. She's like, yes, I am. I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. So we became good friends in New York. And it was like, while we were living in New York, a year later, maybe a year and a half later, we were celebrating one of my birthdays, and her and I just went and grabbed drinks at a bar, and this guy came up to us and was like, hey, so like, how do you guys know each other, whatever? And I was like, well, I honestly think we met in like Spain or France. And she's like, we didn't. We actually met in Brussels, Belgium. You were wearing this diamond choker, this leather corset. And she starts recounting the other half of the story that I had no idea ever happened. So she's like, I met you and I thought you were so beautiful, and we were kind of like flirting with each other. And she was like, I actually have spent 2 years in Europe, and every 6 months she would travel to a different country and study with a different embassy. And so every embassy would train her on how to spot human traffickers. It's my serious angel. And so she was like, I actually heard them speaking in a French-American accent to you, but they were speaking Russian to each other. Normally if they were speaking another language to each other, it would have been French.
Right.
But it was Russian. And she was like, and they kept asking you, where's your passport? Like, what are your ties to being where you are? Like, all these things. And so she told the bartender, she's like, these guys are human traffickers. I need you to call the cops. And so as I was leaving the bar with these guys, they had me by the arm, walking out of the bar, cops came in and like, she pointed to us. It was like, these are the people, like, so the cops started questioning them. And then all of a sudden, that's where I think I blacked back in and was like, something does not feel right.
You don't remember that initial happening. Okay.
Yeah. I was like, something does not feel right. I need to leave. Because that's when there were cops. Something was going on, and I just blacked back in. It was like, I need to get out of here.
Well, yeah, because I mean, at that moment, you don't even know if you did anything.
Yeah.
You're just like, I can't be here.
Now at the bar, after it's been maybe like 2, almost 3 years since the event happened, I've known this girl, and we've become good friends for a year and a half. And this is the first time I'm ever hearing this story. And I was like, oh my God, you saved my life.
Yeah.
And so before I'm in New York, you know, I come back from studying abroad in Europe, and I have to do my last year in school, and I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. Back before, you know, I live in LA. I really probably shouldn't be telling the story, but I live in LA, so weed is legal, right? And weed has been now I really try not to smoke just because of how the smoke in my lungs, it actually, I wake up drowsy, and I don't like waking up drowsy because I try and train stunts, and, you know, I like to be on it, right? I don't like to be out of it.
Right.
And, but I became friends with my weed dealers, and they were like my age, kids in school, and I left like binders over there for a business I was starting. It was like a body chain business, and so it was called Chain Reaction.
And this was like a year after this initial?
This was 6 months after I got back from Europe.
Okay.
So I was like, the business was Chain Reaction because everything was a chain reaction. And I was going to pick up these binders from their place. I get there 2 minutes after I'm there, 5 guys bust in with silencers without face masks there to kill my 2 black guy friends, which probably wouldn't have been any news because they're drug dealers and they're black. But now it's 4 people, 2 of us are white girls, and now it's a murder scene. But also, if you don't wear a face mask when you're coming to rob someone, it means I'm going to kill you.
Because you're not worried about being identified.
Yeah, you can look at my face. I have a silencer. You're not going to fucking live. Excuse me. Sorry, I really keep swearing, but I'm just like, and so now they basically zip tie us down on the ground. And, you know, I'm like, well, I'm not going to be another victim. I was just a victim 6 months prior in Europe. And I was like, I'm not going to be another victim. And so I'm like, okay, what do you guys need? You know, I'm like, take the TV, take the guitar. That's where laptops are, whatever. Like, and they keep jumping up and down on my face, telling me to shut up, stop looking at them, stop talking to them. But my friend over here peed herself, you know, is laying on the ground, peed herself. My other 2 guy friends aren't saying anything. And I was like, I'm not going to be another victim. This is crazy.
Right.
And I just didn't understand even like being friends or, you know, buying a little weed from somebody that I could walk in on a situation. And so, you know, they wanted to blow in our kneecaps and almost put a blowtorch to my guy friend's face. Like, it was just a bad situation. And after they, you know, robbed the guys for everything they had, you know, my guy friends got up, unzip tied themselves, unzip tied us.
You convinced them to walk away from...
Well, because it was a murder scene.
Well, that's what I mean. But then they decided not to kill them. What, you know what I mean? Because they've exposed themselves to these people.
I think because they were in the same drug business, you know what I mean? Where they're like,
they got in over their heads.
It was 5 guys that came in to do this situation, okay. And one of the guys did not know it was going to be this situation where they were going to, they were like, are you guys screwing these? As I'm having this podcast, I'm like putting my hands behind my back where they were zip tied me down just so I can be in the position. But they're like, are you screwing these guys? And I was like, no, I'm here getting my binders. And so they were like, oh, you go to school with these guys. So now they were like, we're not connected to the business at all.
Right.
And now it's definitely going to be news because none of them are wearing gloves. None of them are wearing mat. Like, what do they do? But we go to school with these guys, and especially 2 white girls now are getting murdered that have nothing to do with the drug business. This is going to be news.
Yeah.
And they were like, we don't want that smoke. And so I think one of the guys really was like, we can't, like...
We got to get out of here.
Yeah. And I honestly was looking at them in the eye the whole time from the ground with my head on the ground like this and just talking to them. Because I was like, I am not going to be a victim. And I had always had like these past life recollection dreams being like, if I got ever taken again, I would probably try and work with them and like finesse my way into getting power and getting out or whatever. Like, I'm not going to be powerless.
Right.
And so one of the guys really truly convinced them to like, we'll take whatever we can money wise and get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And, you know, I that was the moment I really realized wow, like who I'm associating myself with, even in a modern friend group, like really dictates the accidental things that can happen in my life, purposeful and accidental.
Yeah.
And who I am as a person, like I need to really be aware of what I'm getting myself into, whether or not you think, I'm not really involved, or I'm just friends with them, or I'm just like, no, you're associating yourself with people who you're associating themselves, like bad things can happen.
Yeah.
And
well, what they're doing has an innate risk that is involved with that. Yeah. And if you're around them at any point in time, the risk that they're taking becomes the risk you're taking.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, I go to college with these guys. It's casual. We're friends.
Right.
And so I went back and did my, my 5th year at school, and I was like, God, kill me. Please, God, like take my life. I don't want to live. I am in such a dark, sad place of a year and a half of horrible things. Why?
Well, it was horrible before that. You escaped to Europe to be safe. You're not safe in Europe. You come back, you're not safe.
A literal year and a half of abusive boyfriend, Europe, and then that. And I was like, I'm good. Like, I'm cool. Like, let's die. Because, like, I had been dealing with anxiety and depression since I was 13.
Yeah.
And so God really was truly like, I heard it. And he was like, I made you a hero I made you a hero in real life so you could play one on screen. And now I think, honestly, it's way more fun to play the villain or anti-villain or anti-hero, truly, because it's such a fine line of when so many horrible things have happened to you, the danger of being such a dark, manipulative, or evil person because you're so hurt is to play it from such a more vulnerable place of like the Joker, Joaquin Phoenix, like the horrible things that happen to you, how do you turn that pain into purpose? And so I was like, wow. So I got into a theater course my 5th year, 2nd semester, with all these freshmen. And I was like, I'm really bad at this, but I love this.
Do you think it's because you wanted to, like, you had this very real experience, all of these very real experiences, that you wanted to do something where you had some control of the situation?
Acting, you have no control. And you can't play acting like you have control.
Sure.
It's almost being in a vulnerable, unknown, uncomfortability space where you have zero control of your career. You have zero control of all these things. But I knew that I had so many feelings and things that I needed a safe place to put them and express them and explore them. Instead of being in business, I would have shut them all down. It's not a vulnerable space. Business is not a vulnerable space. Like, you have to be on your game. Like, you can't cry in the office.
Right.
They're like, are you kidding? But in acting, it's like you're a better actor when you completely expose yourself.
Yeah.
And that's the safe place to do that.
Yeah. And
I was like, wow. And I'm so glad I went to business school, because I now, like, I'm building up a peer space, which is like a whole 1,400 square foot like studio where people come in and like can take photos, videos, shoot events, like all these things. And, I at one point was trying to start a clothing line with a friend, which the friend ran it into the ground. But like, as an actor, you also need to know the business side of it, which many actors are just artists.
Yeah, artists are notoriously horrible about the business side. You have to be able to do both, and that's any creative in general. And we'll get to it. That story was so powerful, I couldn't interrupt you, because that's like it painting the picture in my mind, because I've been to Brussels too. I've been all over Europe, and like I've walked around as like a male who's 6'1" and covered in tattoos, down all like different. In Croatia and Dubrovnik, I was walking around late at night, or anywhere that I'm walking around. And to me, I'd never really think much of it, because I'm like, I'm not going to be the target. It could happen for sure, but I'm not going to be the one that typically would be targeted. Not that I'm not a fighter.
You're not looking for free shots. You're not looking for free drinks. Yeah, so you're not looking for...
So it's just not something I have to think about that much. But then when I can picture what somebody else is going through in that moment, it's just terrifying. And it's not an experience that, like, I've never felt that walking around at night. But just listening to you and seeing your expression through it is like, it gets my heart going. I'm like, oh my God, what would I do if I was in that situation? Yeah. I mean, you have to have business sense to be able to do any kind of artistry at all. I always tell people one of the best like skills you can possibly have is know how to sell yourself as the solution to somebody's needs.
I love that.
Right. And that applies to the business, like what service you provide. It provides you as just being the solution. They're like, oh, Margo can do this for me, or Margo can find the right person to do this for me. I trust Margo. I'm coming to her.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you can sell your brand in that kind of way, that this is the solution, then people will come to you. But if you can't do that, it almost doesn't matter how good you are, you know, because nobody trusts the branding behind it. Nobody thinks of you. I always tell people, even if you're really good at something, because you hear this with people.
If you don't know how to market yourself.
Yeah, they're like, well, if I'm
art.
good, people will just find out. And I'm like, that's just not how it works.
Yeah.
You know, the biggest artists in the world are still on billboards. They're still advertising that you need to go check out their stuff.
But
So
their marketing is key, and that's how you know about them.
Super important. So how do you start to get beyond the PTSD and like actually approach a regular life? Because you come back through all this stuff, you want to end your life, and you're like, I'm just powerless. It seems like the world is just horrible. Why would you want to live in it?
So how I got through it actually is the first thing I did was I got hypnotized to separate myself from the event. So I got connected with this hypnotist, and what she did was like when you look at a scar on your knee, you're not like, that scar, it hurts when I look at it. You're like, oh wow, that happened to me.
Yeah.
I don't currently feel the pain, but I know it's there. I know it happened. So because I couldn't walk alone on the street at night, I was like, I can't be out in the dark. So I got hypnotized to basically put all the pain and anxiety of the event in a balloon, and I sent it up into the sky. And then I kind of was able to just talk about the event like it happened as a fact.
Yeah.
These are facts that happened in my life without the emotional trauma being brought up every single time. And so then I ended up applying to grad school in New York for acting. I went to acting school, and in the first year we did this. One of my classes in my conservatory was a scene study, and we were doing sensory work. So she had us walk around in a circle, and she started kind of being like, so now you're just going to basically use your senses to imagine yourself in these imaginary circumstances. Very hypnotic kind of like state where you're like, okay, you're on a beach and you hear, what do you hear above you? Are there seagulls? How does the ocean sound? As you put your feet in the sand, how does that feel? And, you know, now you're in a field and you're walking, and do you hear the grass rustling? Are you as you're walking through, how are your hands feeling on top of the grass? And like one of the third or fourth situations, she was like, and now you're on the street and it's dark. You're in an alleyway and you're walking, and you hear someone walking behind you. What's your heart rate like? And they're getting closer. They're getting closer to you, and you hear the footsteps closer and closer. And your heart rate, it's beating faster and faster. Where do you feel that in your body? And because I was already in such a hypnotic trance of a meditative state, I actually unlocked the hypnotism that I had done prior. And because I basically was put back in.
Well, you put yourself in a vulnerable spot.
And I put myself back in the situation that I hypnotized myself out of feeling.
You trained yourself to look at it from the outside,
Yes.
and now you're in it.
Yes. And so I put myself back in my subconscious, and all of a sudden in the acting sensory workshop, in the middle of class with all the other students, I all of a sudden start hyperventilating, and I am hysterical. I am hysterically crying because I haven't felt the feelings in the fear and the trauma for, I don't know, maybe like 8 months or something.
The balloon left.
Yes. And then I was up in the sky, found the balloon and popped it. And it was like, oh my God, all these things were coming back to me. And so I sat in the hallway, had my panic attack, I cried. And then after that, I realized, oh, wow, I've lived with the situation for like 7-8 months. And now I know how to live with it without the emotions. But now I also understand some of the underlying, and I feel and I'm connected to some of the underlying feelings again. And so that kind of broke me out of my hypnotism. And so I'm in, acting school, doing all these things. But I had never taken, I'd done some boxing classes. I wasn't physically fit. I actually didn't have an ACL for 6 years. I tore it playing flag football. So my ACL actually disintegrated. I didn't have an ACL for 6 years. So I would be doing athletic stuff and my knee would just blow out all the time. And I would shake it off, wiggle it, and keep going. And so like, my body wasn't in like stable shape to actually be like exercising, to maybe be doing actual self-defense or all this stuff. And especially when you let trauma set in, it's a big step to be like, I want to protect myself, because you're actually just in this sunken hole. And so it wasn't actually until I ended up moving to LA. And
did you have any acting jobs before this?
You know what? No, I did a play in New York, and I actually was like a featured background on Quantico in New York while I was in school. But I came out here for 2 weeks, and I just kept seeing God everywhere, like my lucky number, all these signs on the ground. And I was like, God wants me to be here. I don't know when. And that ended up happening like 11 days later. So I'm in LA probably for maybe like a year and a half. And there's actually a scam going around where it happened to one of the guys on 13 Reasons Why. It happened to one of the casting associates' boyfriends at Sarah Finn's office, who casts all the Marvel movies. And the scam, people don't talk about it because it's traumatizing. But the scam is they will find your information online and then call a parent, and they'll say, "So we've kidnapped your daughter and we're holding her for ransom." And then they have a random person on the phone screaming and crying hysterically, whether it's a girl or a boy. And they'll be like, "You need to go to the bank right now and pull out as much money as possible, or we're going to kill her." And a normal parent would be like, "This is not real.
Right.
This is a scam. This is insane. Hang up. Let me call my actual daughter or son." We didn't tell my mom about what happened to me in Europe for like years. And maybe like 3 years. And now this is maybe like 5 years post, 5 or 6 years post the event. And so they call my mom and they say they've kidnapped me and they're going to kill me. And they're going to kill her if she doesn't go to the bank right now and pull out as much money as possible. So my mom was like, "This is real. This is real. They have my daughter officially."
Well, because she's
now
been afraid of this happening forever since this first event.
Yeah, so she didn't hang up and call me right away. She went to the bank and tried to pull out as much money as possible. The bank called the police force, and this went on for a couple hours at the bank with the police, with the people on the phone. And they were threatening my mom's life, threatening my life. She was like, "Well, how are you gonna kill me if you're in LA?" And they were like, "Shut up, BITCH, like we're gonna,
They're on the phone with your mom this whole time.
Yes. And like, we're gonna kill you. If we know where she is, we know where you are. And they can find all this stuff, like who's your family on Facebook?
Yeah.
What are the phone numbers? And so finally they, the police were like, "Have you actually talked to your daughter?" And she was like, "Yeah, she's screaming and crying." "No, have you called her phone personally?" So they called my stepdad called my phone personally and was like, "Margo, where are you?" And I'm like, this is like 6:30 in the morning. And I'm like, "Hi, I'm in bed." "All right, what?" He's like, "Are you sure you're in bed?" I was like, "Yes." He's like, "Who are you with?" And I was like, "I'm alone." And he was like, "Okay, bye." And I was like, "What?" I'm like, what is going on?
Right.
What is going on? And then I get a call later, and I have to basically kind of, show like I show them I'm at home alone. My mom hangs up, and then they like try and contact her again or other family members. And at this point, I'm like, I'm paralyzed in my bed because I don't know if someone's actually going to be outside to take me.
Sure.
So I'm like having a hard time leaving my apartment. I can't, like, I am like in a hole. I'm back in this baby hole. And I actually had gone on a date with this woman at the time, and she was working for director David Ayer, and he had just got done training the whole cast for Tax Collector with like Shia LaBeouf, Lana Parrilla, George Lopez. And so the dojo that they trained at down the street, where they also trained, Will Smith for Bright, and they did Suicide Squad and all this stuff. She was like, I need to get you in the dojo. I'm not going to let you, we need to teach you how to defend yourself in self-defense because I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so I started getting in the dojo. I started learning Kempo, which is like a mix between karate and boxing, karate, jujitsu, Kali sticks.
So at first you're learning simply because you're like, I want to feel safe.
To defend myself.
Yeah, not necessarily for movie stuff.
Not at all. And then it had been maybe like 6-8 months and I was like, I feel so alive. This is fighting my depression. I feel the best I've ever felt when I'm doing this. And I was like, I'm actually really good at it. Because I'm just like a savage, like don't care in the world, like I'll just go hard, you know, like. And I was like, then I tried to shoot like an action project, and I was like, I realized, oh wow, actual martial arts is very different than fight choreography.
Yeah.
Very different. Like they don't actually hit each other and go crazy like that in movies and projects. It's fight choreography, which makes it look like it. So when I punch you, instead of punching this mic, I punch like in front of the mic or on the side of the mic. So the camera, it crosses the camera lens, makes you think I hit it, makes you think I kicked it, but I didn't. And so then I started learning fight choreography, and then started picking up firearms and weapons, and now I do horse stunts. And I realized martial arts got me to a baseline of back to being just like okay, but picking up weapons got me to a level of being a savage. Where now I'm at the point where I'm like, you want me, come get me, because it's going to be a dance and you're not going to win. So it's, I'm like, my goal is truly given by God. Like I didn't choose to be I always say I didn't choose to be an actor. God chose me to be an actor because of my story. And because truly, like the first Comic-Con I ever went to, my friend was repping all these superheroes, and I got to go with him and see his client up on stage. And she was in this Marvel TV show. I'm not going to say who it is, what show, but she did not like cons. She was hungover. She did not care about being there. And that's where I clicked in. I was like, wow, that's what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be traveling around to Comic-Cons with my action franchise, speaking to children and, insecure women and traumatized, people about you need to take self-defense class, and I need you to prepare your children, even if they come from a privileged area where they get everything they've ever wanted in their entire life. They're actually the most vulnerable because they have zero street smarts. They're not aware of their body. They're not aware of who's following them. They're not aware that their phone on the table, your purse, whatever, like they're a target. So if you don't train your children to have slight self-defense, to be able to be aware of who's a threat, then they're a target. So you have to like train yourself before trauma sets in, because once trauma sets in, then you're just training back to be baseline of, okay, the PTSD doesn't rock my world.
Yeah. Well, and when you felt unsafe your entire life up to this point, when you finally find something that's in your control that makes you feel safe, it must feel like, oh, the door's open. I've been looking for this forever and I finally found it. And so when you find it and then you look back on your experiences of like how horrible things were, you don't want anyone else to go through that. Yeah. So how can you have the biggest impact to help other people not go through that? Well, how does it get bigger than being on TV and going and speaking at conventions with thousands of people, tens of thousands of people?
Most actors are like, yeah, I'm in this cool action movie. Yeah, it's really cool. It's about me. Yeah, these things are cool. It's like, no, but what can you teach someone about being a hero in their own life?
Well,
right?
It's about having purpose again.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
into purpose.
Right, exactly.
Sure.
You're not doing this to make money and I want stardom. It's like, regardless of if this paid anything, I'm doing this for a reason, something that I truly believe in. And I think that shows through in people's work, and that's when all of a sudden more and more opportunities pop up because people see you put that into your work and they're like, I need that. Yeah. I want to be around that. Yeah. And it inspires people around you too. I've had the issue where some people are exhausted from being around me because I'm always like, I want to do these things. I got to accomplish this. This is so important to me. And other people who haven't quite found something that they're like that passionate about, sometimes being next to me, they're like, dude, you got to slow down. Like, I can't even be around you.
Well, their goals aren't big enough. Their God isn't big enough.
Yeah. Well, They just haven't found it yet. They haven't had that experience that like opened their eyes where they're like, I have to do this. I have to have this kind of lasting impact. And thankfully, because you had that business sense from before, you could tie it into all these things. And that gives you the idea then as you learn these different skills, you're like, okay, well, this is something marketable about myself. This is an advantage for my product as in myself over somebody else. I can use that to help sell myself into these different roles. So what was the first like big opportunity that came up that kind of like set you where in your mind where you're like, okay, so this is going to work?
Well, I finally, sometimes I've been through phases where I've been really mad at God because I feel like I'm like, why hasn't it happened yet where I want to be? And it's been 10 years, right? To get a word from God, and 10 years later, you're like, if this is from you, and this is that dream and that thing has been the only thing for a while that kept me alive, being like, this is what I have to do. Sometimes I'll get mad at God and be like, the time's up, time's a ticking. But I've learned to have patience and that it is a journey, and stuff like that takes a lot of time. The first thing right now, actually, this weekend on the 4th of July, I'm speaking at Anime Expo and screening my movie Famish, which is on Amazon and Apple, Apple. It's called Famish. But after I went to the first Comic-Con, I was like, I don't want to go to another Comic-Con until I'm speaking at a con.
Oh, you just attended it just as like...
I attended it with my friend who was repping this superhero.
Okay, sure.
And I was like, I don't want to sit here and watch people doing what I know I'm meant to do. So I don't want to go to another con until I'm talent and I'm speaking. And I think I was an Uber driver like 4 times. And one of the times I picked up this guy, and he worked with my like a married-in uncle as his voiceover agent. And we were talking, and he was like, actually, I'm writing this movie, and I would love you to look at it. And I was like, yeah, cool. I'm like talking to him from the driver's seat as he's in the back seat. I'm like, yeah, I'll be in this movie. So he sent me the script. We shot the movie, and the movie was based at 4 different anime cons.
Oh, cool.
So we shot the movie. The next con I went to, next 4 cons I went to, I was shooting a movie. So I was like, wow, I get to be paid to shoot a movie now at the con and using the con attendees as actual extras in the movie. I was like, wow, this is so cool. And the last con we shot at, we stayed there. It was actually I want to say Wisconsin. I think it was in Wisconsin. And Anime Con, Geek Con, it was called. I don't think it's around anymore. It went out of business, unfortunately. But the last day of the con, we all got to speak on a panel and do all this stuff, and it was amazing. So now that cons are really back in attendance and really big, we're finally now screening this movie. It's screening at San Diego Comic-Con at the end of July. I don't know if we're going to be on a panel yet. We're still figuring that out. But then we're also screening it the 4th of July and speaking on a panel at Anime Expo in downtown Los Angeles. And it's the biggest anime con in the world. And the Anime Expo's sold out. You can't get any tickets. It's going to be huge. So I'm like, slowly but surely, like, God does these little things where it's not on your timing, and you really have to release that, right?
Yeah.
You have to release it. And also in the meantime, I learned, thank God I went to business school. You don't just need to do side gigs until you get your acting gig or your dream job, and then use all that extra money you make from that to do your businesses. I can, as a businesswoman, invest in businesses and create businesses now while I'm still also going towards my dream. And I was like, oh, wow, I didn't realize I could do it in any order. Yeah. I thought I had to have my acting gig, and then from my acting mega money, I would then invest in businesses and be a businesswoman. But the pandemic taught me, no, invest in those other businesses now, because they'll also fulfill you while you're also chasing this other dream as well.
Yeah. Well, and if you have any maturity with your business, it's if you just go into business with a bunch of money and no know-how, it's not going to go well.
Yeah.
It's much better to start at a smaller scale, learn all that base knowledge, so that way when you are in a position where you can invest more into these larger companies, you actually know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think people forget sometimes, because they want to get to this spot, they forget what steps you actually have to take to get there to be successful at that spot. Yeah. You think what you know right now, just all of a sudden you're like, I could do what this person does at that position. But if you actually want to do your best possible work when you're in that position, you need to follow that whole journey and take all these different steps. And you don't necessarily know how they're going to
It's a cha-cha slide. It's a little front,
Seriously.
It's a little sideways, diagonal down, back down, and then way up, maybe in a circle to the left, to the right. It's a cha-cha. And you're like, I hate it. But you have to learn to be okay in the uncomfortability and the unknown of it's a process.
And when you look back, you'll see where all these steps took and how they benefit you in this moment. Well, we're doing the cha-cha slide, so it's time to get to our second song break. What's a song that for whatever reason puts you in a really good mood?
You know what? I love Astronaut in the Ocean by Masked Wolf.
I feel like that song just needs to be 3 times longer because it's a vibe for sure.
It's the best vibe. When I am shooting my weapons, when I'm doing everything over any action demo reel, I'm like, that's the song, baby. Let's go.
Getting back to the movie, so it's Fame-ish, Fame-ish.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
When did that actually go live on Amazon? Because you can just like go stream it right now, is what you're saying.
3 years ago.
Okay, so how did that movie come together? That was like the first like big role movie you had? Because you're like one of the main characters, right?
Yeah, it's actually the first movie I ever did, and the first movie that also got published and distributed. So, and we were just talking about this during the break, that like you have so much readily available information and resources to now that like you don't have to make a movie for a couple $1 million. Honestly, we made Fame-ish for $24,000. But that's because all the guests in the movie also we got to shoot at the locations for free, at the cons for free. All the guests were also paid to be at the cons to speak on panels. And so we got so much stuff for free. And that's like the awesome thing is like, how can I make this a beneficial for you as well as for us, right?
It's talking about currency, right? Currency isn't necessarily just money. You know, you can exchange your time for this. I have these cameras. Maybe I can let you use them for this project or whatever. What can I do for you? How can we make this an even exchange? And currency could be time, it could be energy, it could be knowledge, a lot of different things. But if you eliminate the dollar from it, all of a sudden you're not paying taxes on it, and usually you can get a lot more for your dollar in that kind of mindset.
Absolutely, especially if you have an LLC. I have an S corp. I write everything off. You need to be writing everything off. So like in my acting and in my other businesses I'm creating, like everything is a write off at the end of the year. So that really helps with taxes. And like instead of getting paid a W-2 on events and stuff I worked, I get paid a W-9, you know, and then like it's even less taxes for the company, beneficial for them, and then beneficial for me in terms of like the income I make at the end of the year isn't as big, because unless you're taking and paying yourself out from your company. But yeah, one of the things actually, like the only way actually I was able to even do, so I mentioned I'm a world finalist for Miss Swimsuit USA this year, 2022. The finals are in October. I'm so excited. What made you want to do that?
Because you were doing, acting and doing what you're doing, you're already in a fitness position, but like, that's not the same thing as modeling.
So during the pandemic, and I've talked about this a lot, during the pandemic, I'm really open about the things I've done to myself cosmetically. Whenever I looked at myself in the mirror, I just didn't see the superhero type of like woman that I always saw in my head. So during the pandemic, we had like 2 years of just downtime. So I got work done that I'd been wanting to do for a while, and it's the best decision I ever made in my entire life. Like I mentioned this on Beauty by Dr. K's podcast, Beauty Bites. I had lipo in my boobs done, and I've done fillers and Botox and everything like that. And this is like the first time in my life where I wake up every day and I'm like, this is exactly who I always knew wanted to look like. And when you step into a room and you are confident about everything, you recognize yourself in the mirror, you feel like your best self, you then therefore are minimizing any insecurity, trying to minimize those. You present your best self in every situation. And also, like, I know, women only talk about getting mommy makeovers like after children. Well, why can't you be happy now?
Yeah, I think it's all about intent too. Like, are you doing it for you or are you doing it for somebody else? And if you're doing it for you, I don't have any work like that done, but I have a lot of tattoos, and it's like the same thing, really. I envision myself. This is how I see myself. What I think how I see myself is looking this certain kind of way. So I've always had it built into my budget that when I want something new tattooed, I'm going to go get it tattooed. And other people will be like, well, how can you afford it? Dude, I just always have money saved for when I'm ready to get one. I'm going to get it because that's how I envision myself, and that's how I feel good.
The presentation of yourself is one of the best marketing tools, because that's the first thing people see. So we were talking about this before we started recording the podcast.
Yeah.
People in the Midwest don't really take as much note into their physical appearance, right? In LA, your physical appearance and your presentation is your walking business card. It is your walking billboard. It is the walking advertisement of your brand. And if you have a very successful business, but you really don't present yourself in a manicured, professional, like on point, they're like, if you look messy, your business is probably messy. So, I after I got work done, I was also like, I want to be in the best shape and best body of my life for the next 4 years before I have children. I want to have the superhero body of my life. And I know the reason celebrities bounce back so quickly post-surgery is because they had lipo. So they don't get fat in their stomach when they're pregnant because they actually don't have those fat cells. Like, these are the tricks that people aren't telling you. Like how these women have abs, like a couple months after they were pregnant. You're like, how is this possible? Well, all the fat went to their ass because they sucked out all the fat everywhere else, right?
Yeah.
And so I was just like, I'm in this place where I have so much time to heal. And now, I also work out. I work out 6 days a week. I train weapons. I horse ride. I eat very healthy. So now I'm just like, I don't ever worry about waking up and not looking my best self. And so I was like, I'm going to be in this pageant. And my friend is a world finalist in the pageant. And it comes with like, Sports Illustrated covers and all these crazy things. And I was like, that's actually really cool because I felt like I was kind of not an ugly duckling, but I never, I didn't have an ACL for 6 years. So I was out of shape. I couldn't really work out maybe for like 8-9 years because I just was unstable in my legs and all that stuff. And now that I'm, X amount of months kind of into preparation, I really realized, a lot of beauty pageants actually are kind of a lot about your outer presence, but they also age you out at 28. So most pageants you can't be in after you turn 28. Miss USA, like all these things. So, yeah. And I'm like, wow. At 30, I finally feel like my full self. I know what are important to me. I have foundations and testimonies from God. I am investing in businesses. I am trying to be of service. Like, how can you only be promoting girls who are like still figuring that out? Why are you idolizing these girls when I am a woman and I have so much to say that I'm trying to do so much with? And so I'm so grateful Miss Swimsuit USA is actually like allowing me to do it at 30, and I'm in the best shape of my life. And I am trying to bring being a savage and being strong and into the pageant world. Yeah. Like, it's can be about being pretty, but for me, it's about being a savage and in your everyday life, doing things like all the way, being fearless, turning your pain into passion, and being strong, being someone who's been a warrior, who has been through things, who has healed, who has not hid from that pain, who has confronted it and used it in their everyday life. And so I was like, this would be in a really amazing platform to talk about.
Oh yeah, and young girls are watching this. Not just young girls, but primarily, right?
Yes.
A lot of young girls look up to these women. Yeah. What do you want them to be looking up to them for? Just being pretty? Like, probably not just that, right?
Right.
Ideally, we want to talk about all the other things so that way they can pursue their own happiness, because that's really what's important.
Yes.
And feeling good about yourself and the way you look does matter.
Yes.
But when they can look up to somebody that now has their own career established doing all these things, that's so much more inspiring the story.
I'm not going to lie, like, pretty people do get a lot more opportunities than people who don't. But, the
world's not a fair place.
Right,
I wish it was, but it isn't.
It's never fair. The first year and a half post surgery, I was just doing lots of pretty content. And I was like, wow, I'm really just only doing a lot of hot photos and photo shoots, and I'm not doing content of substance. So that's where I was like, I'm more than pretty. I'm more than just hot, and I need to start utilizing and tapping into that. because I've had a lot of other opportunities to do other like bikini competitions and these trips of like we're hot girls and you go and get so much content and photos, and I'm like
influencer stuff.
And I'm like, you know what? It's really an easy trap to fall into, just doing hot girl photo shoots and all this stuff. But I need to actively focus more on doing the work that is meaningful. And so finding an opportunity where I feel like Miss Swimsuit USA, like you have a platform, like you talk about, you know, the whole week you're talking with judges about who you are, your story. And because I really actively try and do so much with my story, I'm like, you know, if pageants still allow, I think there should be pageants where you're like in your 20s, and then pageants where you're in your 30s and like you're a mom, you're maybe not married, but you're a successful business owner. Like we need to be celebrating women who celebrate themselves and use that to provide more seats at the table for women, to also invite like diversity and other people, so we can have more, like bring our friends up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and in general, I think professional sports and everything is kind of in a jaded way where we're teaching kids from a young age that if you're not the pinnacle at this particular moment or whatever, this is the only thing that's good for you. I mean, I won't go down a huge rabbit hole of that. But yeah, you know, like with school sports and stuff, it's like, well, only the 5 boys on this team out of the 400 in this school, only 5 get to play. And like, that's so defeating, telling them like everyone else, well, you're not good enough, you know, when it's like, I feel like, you know, with intramurals or anything else, with all these things, you know, you're talking about the beauty pageants, why does it only this one, you know? Why can't we make it so that way a lot more people can participate? And I see like the opposite side where people are like, we don't need to give participation medals. I'm not saying we need to give everyone a huge medal. Why can't people participate though? They should be able to just do the things that they want to do that make them happy. Why are we not giving those things? And I think a lot of people would watch it. If how many people watch Real Housewives of whatever, you're going to tell me people wouldn't watch an age 30 to 40? Come on. Like, and we've seen, and I guess I don't want to age anybody, but I've met some models that are definitely like 30s, 40s that are smoking. So you're not out of the range by that point anyways. Where are you going with things though? Like what's actually happening right now? You're still wanting, you're doing the swimsuit one.
Yes.
Yeah. But did you sideline all the acting gigs in the meantime?
No. So, well, first I have to mention like the only way the only way I'm doing the pageant right now is I work with incredible sponsors. So we're talking about this currency of like trading your time and finding people to work with also that like support you and everything. So I have to mention my sponsor for the pageant, and getting really into like health and beauty and all this stuff. I found out, I don't know, do you know about hyperbarics?
I don't think so.
Oh my God, life-changing. So hyperbaric chambers, cryotherapy is like pretty widely talked about, right? It's like a cold chamber that you walk into and it helps with pain and everything. I've been doing hyperbaric chambers, which is basically you lay down in this glass kind of tube and it pumps you. So Royal Hyperbarics, I love Ed. He's has the best chambers in, I want to say, all of LA and probably all of California. You sit in this chamber for like an hour and it pumps your body with, he does 8 liters of oxygen. And so it pumps your body with 400 times the amount of oxygen. So it's an insane healer, right? So part of how I'm like able to, I feel like keep going and doing so much in my life where like, you know, you wake up at 6 a.m, you train for 4 hours of stunts and then you're doing your other business stuff and you're literally everything. Hyperbaric chamber treatments have like, when your brain has enough oxygen, you hyper heal, right? So like you can actually heal from tumors and illnesses, COVID, diseases. Like there's so much. So one thing I actively am doing right now is I really, yes, in acting, but I also love, like, I found out I just have this fascination for beauty and health cheat codes because people don't talk about cheat codes at all, ever. So I've been making actually a lot of content on, I work with Beauty by Dr. K, who does all the like Botox and fillers and PRP, microneedling, how your body can like regenerate through the insertion of your own stem cells right back into your body, and doing hyperbaric chamber treatments and like photo light synthesis and like lymphatic draining. I would literally not be able to function without my hyperbaric chambers, probably like 2-3 days a week. So if you have any questions, Royal Hyperbarics in Beverly Hills is insane, amazing. Ed will hook you up. He's really great. And then actively other things that I'm working on right now. So I'm almost ready to launch my Pure Space. It's going to be called Savage Palace LA. So 700 of the 1,400 square feet are just about to launch. So I created that space so I could film a podcast in, I could film content in there.
It's like a retail space?
No, so it's almost like a studio space where you walk in and there's all these different walls and rooms and spaces. There's a whole hutch for like production and podcast, like you shoot video, photos, content, event spaces. Yeah. So I really love crafting. Like it's one of my favorite things in like interior design and doing like fun, wild, creative designs. So doing that. I'm also, because I love the whole business side of it, I'm actually an executive producer, and I was a series regular on a wrestling show that we're pitching right now, which is called The Beatdown. I'm obsessed with it. We're trying to find the next amazing home for the next best female wrestling show. I love Glow. Glow was such an incredible show, but it got canceled right when the kind of pandemic started because it was so much body on body content, like our contact for all the wrestling and like how do you film that during the pandemic, right? And Heels is on, which is amazing. I think it's on Stars. But it's really dark and it also kind of centers around these two guys. The Beatdown, I love The Beatdown. It's the next best female wrestling show. It has the grit and raw roughness of Shameless. It has the female empowerment of Glow, but it's shot mockumentary style like The Office with testimonials. It's really awesome. And because it's kind of like a faux mockumentary type style show, all of us girls actually had previous wrestling contracts, minus me. I was the only non-wrestling contract given girl when we started training for the show, but I was in stunts. So I was like, yeah, throw me on the mat, like do whatever, I'll do it. And so our idea is to really partner with other like wrestling leagues and bring in actual wrestlers to wrestle on the show. So instead of watching the season finale on TV, you actually could get a ticket and come see our show live or on pay-per-view.
Oh, okay.
Hell yeah. So it's like the first show of its kind.
Right. To incorporate both those things. Yeah.
So we're finding a home for this. I'm so excited about this. My character, she's this wild cowgirl. And her name is Whippin' Whitney, and I bring in my bullwhip into the ring. I do like the bucking bronco. I do all these crazy things. It's really awesome. So there's that. We're also shopping another sci-fi pilot that I shot, and I'm the lead in that. So that's really awesome. And working on potential development of a podcast called Savage Quo. Just because my life, the way I feel like a savage lives is you're unbreakable and you're unstoppable, and you don't let trauma, pain, purpose, fear stop you. A savage looks at the darkness, the pain, and says, let's fucking go. And so the savage quo, kind of like the status quo, is keeping the savage quo of turning pain into purpose and not backing down from anything. And so I'm really excited. We're developing that. We're recording episodes of that. But it's a lot. It's a lot going on. So I try and it's like, how do you can't chase too many rabbits at once, right? You only can really chase one rabbit at once. So I'm working with my mentor group is like, okay, scheduling out every hour of every day and being like, okay, this time I'm, for these 5 minutes, I'm doing meditation. Then I'm going to journaling. Then I'm doing my acting work and acting business. Then I have my other business work. Then working out, like literally scheduling yourself out for success and creating that group of people around you you said you had people around you that were like, you're doing too much for me. I'm like, the people, leaders take action while others watch is what my mentor, Mike Chat, says in XMA Action. He was one of the Power Rangers, and now he trains like world athletes, champion athletes, and action heroes and all this stuff. And, leaders take action while others watch.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be a victim. I don't want to be a bystander in my own life. I don't want to be a supporting character in my own life. Like, I'm going to actively go out and change my circumstances and my life so I can be of service and provide a better life for the people around me.
Yeah.
So also that's also probably why it's taken me 10 years to kind of get where I am, because I do so much. So sometimes it's a little bit in this bucket, little bit in this bucket. Oh, you neglect this bucket, little bit in this bucket. But
I mean, you've done a lot in 10 years too.
Yes.
You can't discount the fact that, certain things took a while, because you
Yeah.
still did,
Yes.
a lot in a pretty short period of time. You started a little bit late too.
Yeah.
A lot of these
For
people,
sure.
that's what I'm saying. A lot of these people, you think it was like overnight, but then when you actually look at their
Yeah.
stories, like I was watching something that showed Ryan Gosling as a little kid, like, in
start
the
so
Mickey whatever
young.
show. And it was like, oh my God. So these people have been doing a lot. So
sure.
in a short period of time,
Yes.
you really have done a lot.
I was on one of also a co-host on one of the largest queer talk shows on YouTube as well. We had like 170,000 subscribers. We shot at YouTube studios. Of course, it kind of production stopped during the pandemic and all this stuff, but
that was the great reset. That's for sure.
yes,
Yeah.
100%. And it really actually made me look at the things I was doing in my life. Because I also started, I was doing an OnlyFans for a while, right? But why I did it was I never did any nude content. I never did anything crazy. I was never shaking my ass, doing weird shit, showing anything. But I was like, as a artist, you actually are never compensated for years. And you put so much money into your art, and you don't get any reimbursement or any of that unless you luck out. And so why as a creator, why can't I join a subscription-based website where people can say, you know what, I want to support you in your art. I want to support you in all these things. I was only on it for a little bit, maybe like 6 months, because I really hated that even though people never saw my content, they had these perceptions of me and the content I was making. And I was like, it's so horrible. I hate that. So on my podcast, I've interviewed a lot of people who have different profiles on different subscription-based websites, because there's Fansly, there's OnlyFans, there's Brand Army, which I think one of my friends, CJ Perry, she was Lana in WWE Superstars. She's on Brand Army. So she's doing a bunch of stuff on there, doing her own programming and podcasts and merch. And so
but things are going in a subscription-based
They
world,
are.
and it's not just nude content. It's in general content. Just content, period.
I think it's different audiences go to different websites.
Of course, yeah.
And so they'll ask you for stuff even if that's not what you're doing on there.
Sure.
So I realized, okay, I have to find the right home then for me. But also I've always been someone who has done stuff the way that works for me. So I'm like, I don't care if you have an opinion of what this website is. I love me. I'm not going to do anything that I feel uncomfortable doing. And if it works for me, I'm going to do it until it doesn't work for me, until it doesn't make me feel good. But I have no regrets.
Yeah.
It was, oh, wow, I can allow people to support me in my art.
Yeah, it was empowering.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, I'd never given other people an opportunity to support me back as an artist. And I was like, wow, this feels really good. This is like so much validation, right?
Yeah.
But I think I really support creators who allow their audience and their fans to give back to them that isn't at a box office or movie theater, like as they're a growing artist.
I mean, it's a business sense.
Yes.
Not everybody
You have
has
to be a
X
business
amount of dollars
person.
to put. Right, exactly. You got to figure out what product do the people that are looking and following what I do, the people that like what I do, what products can I allow them access to?
Yes.
And there's a lot of different ways to do it. I just interviewed a chef and he was saying like, look, not everyone can spend what it costs to hire me for an event to come cook.
Yeah.
But I started this cookie company.
Oh, that's
People can
cool.
order these cookies. Like that's
cool.
a price point that
Yes.
most people can hit,
Yes.
So if you're not giving anyone an opportunity, no one's going to come through. And then like I have a Patreon for my show,
Patreon is also great.
patreon.com/passionpod. You can go on
Amen.
there.
Yes.
But and I don't have like a ton of people on there, but I noticed, because I wasn't creating a ton of extra content for it specifically because I'm so busy with my
Yeah, I
kids
get
and
it.
my show and everything,
lot.
and I kind of was posting on there like, what do you got, what do people want? And I pretty much everyone said the same thing to me, and they're like, dude, we just like what you do. Like, I don't even honestly care what you put on here. Just, I wanted to support you, and that's it.
Well, it's as an artist finding other ways of passive income.
Yeah.
So like this cookie business, he doesn't necessarily have to see everybody or touch everybody in order to make money.
Right.
But as a chef, he has to cook for them.
Yeah.
So it's like, as an artist, when you're on a subscription-based website, I don't actually have to physically see or talk to you for you to have the chance to support me or anything
Well,
like
at some
that.
point with a scale,
Yes.
as you scale things, you're not gonna have the time to sit one-on-one with every
Yes.
individual person as much as you would like to. It's just not realistic.
Yes. So that's why those things of
Right.
finding ways to have those passive income points, like as a photographer, you can make people from a lot of money from doing shoots, but not as much money if, say, I don't know, you made a book of all your portraits and you sold your book.
Yeah.
Or you did all, these different things where it's like,
Yeah, or again, a lot of these photographers are going on, subscription-based services and saying like, look, I have content with all of these people. And it's not just
Yes.
nude content, it's all kinds.
Yes.
And it's like, if you want all of this in this catalog, because people are moving to a digital age, this is the best spot to keep up with everything that I'm doing if you want to support me. And it's a great way where it's like $5 a month or $10 a month or whatever is like not much money to most people. But if you have a bunch of people that care, it adds up pretty quickly. So it does make it very
does.
possible. I always ask this question on the show, just because we're getting towards the end, because I know
Yeah.
you have other things to do as
Yeah.
well. You and Luna have to disappear. Why can't Luna stay all day?
know, she's a good
I haven't been able to snuggle with my dog sleeping all week.
and your
I'm,
daughter's
losing...
named Luna, and you have a
Yeah.
dog that looks like my dog. So it's like your daughter and dog all in my
I know,
dog.
she's here looking cute.
She is.
So when you do things that you're passionate about, you get to have really unique experiences that are
Yeah.
very meaningful to you.
Yeah.
Whether it's like speaking at an event or,
Yeah.
you had someone reach out and say you inspired me or whatever. You get to have a lot of these experiences that typically aren't money based, but you remember the rest of your life. It's those times when you have them and you're like, okay, I'm doing the right thing. This is what I should be spending my life doing. Can you share an experience like that?
You know what? I've been pretty, we kind of mentioned about how I'm really into these finding health benefits that can have your body allow a chance to heal itself.
Yeah.
Through hyperbarics, through PRP. One of the amazing things that I've been vocal about is the one thing that recreated new pathways within my brain was to help re-trigger my PTSD triggers was microdosing. So I got into microdosing mushrooms maybe like 2-3 years ago. Wow, during the beginning of the pandemic. And magic mushrooms are the only organic substance to chemically rewire your brain through neurogenesis. So you can physically attach PTSD triggers. You can get out of addictive habits, addicted to caffeine, drugs. And because I've been so vocal about it, I had a friend who, I wouldn't call her a friend. I had an associate via social media say, hey, I actually listened to some of your interviews and stuff on how microdosing really changed your life. And she's like, because of you, I was able to, this is the first time in 22 years I got off my antidepressants from microdosing. And I was just like, you're going to make me cry. Like to stop hiding the things in my life, even if they are taboo, and to do them because they work for me, and to not be a secret keeper of my life and be like, I've been through things and I do things and they work for me, and I want you to have the secrets because they're not secrets. I want you to be great, because how you're going to be great is not how I'm going to be great. Like, your greatness does not take away from my greatness. And even though it's taboo, like, doing OnlyFans was very taboo. Like, all these things where talking about mushrooms is taboo. But I have opened myself up to being like, it's okay to be taboo if I can help someone.
Yeah. Well, and you're being a real person.
Yeah.
And so few people want to put their real raw selves out there. And as we're seeing kind of the way social media has evolved, that's what we're tending to find is a lot of these people that grow a lot on social media. It's because they're actually real.
Yeah.
Like I interviewed Michaela Murphy on Instagram. She's Michaela Dancer. She's got like 15 million on TikTok or something.
Good for her.
Lot.
Okay,
she's
girl.
from Detroit.
Okay.
Crushing it. But you watch her content and like, yeah, she's all dolled up for some of it. Not all of it. She's very raw and real about her whole, her own experiences and what she does. And people actually relate to that. That's how you really inspire people. The strongest people are usually the ones who were at the lowest points at some point in time. You know what I mean? They weren't weak. It's just they had these things happen, and that's what triggered them to grow stronger in the first place. So then when all these other people hear their story when they were in their lowest point, their saddest point, their darkest spot, that's when they can relate to them.
Yes.
And that's when they're like, I can go up too.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important to say that, because if you just throw out like, look at all my success, it doesn't make you relatable. It's not inspiring. And at that point, now you're just stroking your ego, which how good does that actually feel? Not
that good.
Right.
I have a habit of sometimes making content that I think is just funny and easy to make, and like funny videos and stuff like that. But my problem is I'm trying to actually make more content that is on brand with my message.
Yeah.
And that's also harder because it takes so much more work, right? So, the balance between what is easy and funny, what you enjoy and what you know other people will like, and the content and the work that is actually for the long-term goal that...
Yeah, you're talking business.
Yeah.
Again, you're trying to sell a product.
The balance. The balance.
Trying to consider all of that things.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's certain outlets
Yeah.
for the goofy stuff if it's not
I tried
on
to move
brand.
all that stuff to TikTok.
That's
all the
what I'm saying.
influencer beauty, like all the knick-knack
Yeah.
cheat codes on now only on TikTok, and like Instagram trying to be my like stunt action acting podcast, like all those things. So I'm like, even though I know my purpose and my path, I'm not always voicing it, or I'm not always actively doing things openly to be like, this is where I'm going, this is where I want to go, please help me on this journey, please join me on this journey. And so we're working on that.
I mean, it's just hard because there's so many platforms and there's so many things to do. So trying to actually do everything you want to do in the day, when you're people like us, you're never going to be able to reach all of it. You have to figure out, okay, how do I get 90% of what I want done? Because that's what I have time, and I have to prioritize and get there. And sometimes certain things, like for me, TikTok has been on the back burner forever. I know it's a useful, valuable thing. Haven't really used it. I'm getting there. I'll get there, and I just have to be kind to myself and say, you know what, I'm doing my best, and I'm happy with the way it's going, and we'll get to it when we get to it.
Well, even having like, sometimes you just need an extra hand, right?
Well,
so like you have like a social media, what you can do is, because I learned this during the pandemic, because you have an LLC, a business, you can actually create an internship position, submit that to colleges around you, bring in a social media intern who can actually just take the video footage, the audio footage, create clips from this and post it on your TikTok.
Yep.
But again, the time of creating the job description, of submitting all those things, you're like, sometimes I just need to do the
training the person. I've had a bunch of interns.
I don't know. They're young. They might know TikTok. And you're like, literally, I just need you to create clips of my stuff to put on TikTok.
For sure. But that's just, that's being resourceful, and like we talked off mic, nowadays, if there's anything you want to do, there's ways to do it. The tools are there if you're willing to search for those tools. And that is one of many tools. When I opened my shop, I Googled, how do you open a business? I opened my skateboard shop when I was 23, a brick and mortar store in Wisconsin when I'm 23. I'm Googling, how do you do that? Pretty quickly, I figured it out, and I found that there was a small business development center out of the university in my town that was a free asset to anybody that wanted to open a business. So I got to go sit with a guy who had already owned a bunch of businesses, and he was a professor and taught a bunch of students. And he's like, "Yep, give me a business plan. I'll give it to my students. They look over it, give you advice. We'll go to the next meeting." It was just like, whoa, this is just here. So you'd be surprised. If you're looking to do something, if you're looking for excuses, you'll find them. But if you want to do something and you're looking for answers, you're looking for tools, you'll find them too. So just put it out there. So where can people now best follow you, get in contact if they want to reach out after this episode? Because we didn't even touch nearly half of the stories that you have.
I know.
But if they wanted to...
Amen. Yes. You know what? You can follow me on Instagram at It's Margo Graff. MargoGraff. On Instagram. On TikTok, it's just Margo Graff, MargoGraff. Also, you can go to find Royal Hyperbarics. It's going to be royalhyperbarics.com, hyperbaricking.com. That's really amazing for all the info on how hyperbarics can change your life. And my movie, I got Famish on Amazon Prime and iTunes. We also got, you can see me, this will probably be posted way after, but I'm going to be at Anime Expo July 4th, San Diego Comic-Con end of July. If you're in Mexico in October and want to come see Miss Swimsuit USA Finals, come there, baby. We're everywhere, okay?
Hell yeah. I'm going to go watch this Amazon Prime one right now. Like I said, I mentioned I interviewed another a director who did a movie that was on Amazon. And yeah, when I got back from LA, I watched it, took a picture of him on screen because he put himself as a little cameo. And I was like, what up, dog?
What up, dog?
So
Love that. Yes, support your friends.
I'm definitely going to do that. You can find the show everywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's now on YouTube as well. So there is the video there. I do reels and TikToks and stuff of clips, and they're little gems. If you don't want to listen to an entire hour and a half, you can find some little gems, and then you're going to want to go back and listen to everything. Best way to support too, if you don't have a whole ton of money, is ratings, including when you go watch the movie. You can go give it a rating on Amazon, and that is really, really, really helpful. So people should definitely go do that because it takes no amount of time to do that.
Don't even watch it, just rate it.
Honestly, I don't think you have to.
Just rate it.
I don't think you even have to drop a rating on that platform. I'm pretty sure you don't. So either way, go drop it a rating. Go drop the show a rating on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. It's just Passion Pod. On Instagram, it's just Passion Pod. It's
and
easy
Patreon. Tell them about Patreon again,
Patreon.com/PassionPod for $5 a month. I actually do have full-on extra episodes with local people. I put out episodes way early. I interviewed this Packers player for this season. I'm a huge Packers fan, being from Wisconsin.
That's fine. I'm actually a hockey girl, so you know what? Live your best. Yeah, live your best.
Sure, but yes, I did that interview a month ago.
Wow.
That's been on Patreon this whole time.
Wow.
I got it done right away. So there are ways to support on there. Passionpod.org is the website where you can go order merch. If you want to wear a cool sweatshirt and whatnot, I did pay a baller graphic designer to do some really cool stuff. So you can go rep that anywhere else, or you can just DM me and I'll send you stickers and you can put them on your water bottle. So lots of ways to support. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.